Oreshnik, Russia's hypersonic missile, the weapon that changed everything. The radar operators at NATO's missile defense installations across Europe stared at their screens in disbelief. Something was moving across their displays at speeds that shouldn't have been possible. Mach 10, maybe faster. In less than 11 minutes, it had traveled over 1,000 kilometers from its launch point deep in Russia to its target in Ukraine. No interception was possible. No warning could have been given. The age of hypersonic warfare had just announced itself with devastating clarity. This wasn't science fiction. This was November 21st, 2024, and the world had just witnessed the combat debut of Russia's Oreshnik, a weapon system so advanced that it rendered nearly a century of missile defense theory obsolete in a single strike. Oreshnik translates to hazel tree in Russian, a deceptively peaceful name for what Western intelligence agencies now consider the most dangerous conventional weapon ever deployed. Unlike the intercontinental ballistic missiles that defined Cold War nightmares, Oreshnik represents something entirely new, an intermediate-range hypersonic system that can strike targets across Europe with virtually no warning and zero possibility of interception. The weapon's existence had been whispered about in classified briefings for months before its combat debut. Intelligence analysts had pieced together fragments from satellite imagery, intercepted communications, and defector testimonies, but nothing had prepared them for witnessing it in action. When Oreshnik struck the Yuzhmash defense plant in Dnipro, Ukraine, it didn't just destroy its target, it shattered fundamental assumptions about modern warfare. What makes Oreshnik truly terrifying isn't just its speed, though traveling at Mach 10 plus puts it beyond the reach of any existing defense system. It's the weapon's ability to carry multiple, independently targeted re-entry vehicles, MRVs, each capable of striking different targets with pinpoint precision. Think of it as a hypersonic shotgun blast, where each pellet is a guided missile traveling at 10 times the speed of sound. To understand Oreshnik's revolutionary nature, you must first grasp the engineering challenges that hypersonic weapons present. At Mach 10, the missile is moving at roughly 12,000 kilometers per hour, fast enough to travel from Moscow to London in less than 20 minutes. At these speeds, the weapon's surface temperature exceeds 2,000 degrees Celsius, hot enough to melt steel. Russian engineers solved the thermal management problem through what appears to be a combination of advanced materials, science, and revolutionary cooling systems. Intelligence suggests they've developed new ceramic matrix composites capable of withstanding extreme temperatures while maintaining structural integrity. But here's where it gets interesting. Unlike traditional ballistic missiles that follow predictable parabolic trajectories, Oreshnik can maneuver during flight. This maneuverability is achieved through what defense analysts believe is a plasma dynamic control system, essentially using the superheated air around the missile as a steering mechanism. It's like trying to control a meteor while it's burning through the atmosphere, a feat that requires computational power and materials science that pushes the absolute limits of current technology. The propulsion system itself remains largely mysterious. While traditional rockets burn out their fuel quickly and coast to their targets, Oreshnik appears to maintain powered flight throughout much of its trajectory. This suggests either a revolutionary new propulsion technology or a highly advanced ramjet-scramjet system that can operate at hypersonic speeds, technology that Western nations have struggled to master for decades. When President Putin announced Oreshnik's existence in a televised address following the Dnipro strike, his words carried implications that sent shockwaves through defense establishments worldwide. Modern air defense systems that exist in the world and anti-missile defenses created by the Americans in Europe can't intercept such missiles. He wasn't bluffing. Current missile defense systems like the US THAAD, Terminal High Altitude Area Defense, and Patriot systems are designed to intercept threats traveling at Mach 5 or less. Oreshnik's Mach 10 plus speed, combined with its maneuvering capability, makes interception mathematically impossible with existing technology. It's like trying to shoot down a lightning bolt with a slingshot. The weapon's intermediate range, estimated between 3,000 to 5,500 kilometers, places virtually all of Europe within striking distance from launch sites in Western Russia. This range is particularly significant because it falls into a gap in existing arms control treaties. The now-defunct Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty, which the US and Russia both abandoned, covered weapons with ranges between 500 to 5,500 kilometers. Oreshnik exists precisely in this unregulated space. But here's what keeps military planners awake at night. Oreshnik can carry either conventional or nuclear warheads, and there's no way to determine which until impact. This ambiguity creates what strategists call escalation uncertainty. The terrifying possibility that a conventional Oreshnik strike could be mistaken for a nuclear attack, potentially triggering World War III. Western intelligence agencies are scrambling to understand not just how Oreshnik works, but how many Russia possesses and where they're deployed. Satellite imagery has identified potential launch sites, but the missile's mobility makes tracking nearly impossible. Unlike fixed silos or large mobile launchers, Oreshnik appears to be launched from relatively compact, road mobile systems that can disappear into Russia's vast territory within minutes of firing. What's particularly concerning to intelligence analysts is the speed of Oreshnik's development. While Western hypersonic programs have struggled with technical challenges for decades, Russia appears to have leapfrogged directly to operational deployment. This suggests either a breakthrough in fundamental technology or assistance from an unexpected source, possibly China, which has its own advanced hypersonic program. The November 2024 strike provided intelligence agencies with their first real-world data on Oreshnik's capabilities, but it also revealed how little they actually knew. Seismic monitoring stations recorded the impact, but the weapon's approach was undetected until the final moments. Debris analysis confirmed the use of advanced materials, but the propulsion system remains largely mysterious. Oreshnik's emergence has triggered a hypersonic arms race that makes the Cold War missile gap look quaint by comparison. The US military's hypersonic programs, the Army's long-range hypersonic weapon, and the Navy's conventional prompt strike are still years from operational deployment. Even when they do enter service, they're designed primarily for precision strikes against high-value targets, not the area denial role that Oreshnik appears designed for. China's response has been equally concerning. Intelligence suggests Beijing has accelerated its own hypersonic programs in response to Oreshnik's demonstration. The prospect of multiple nations possessing weapons that can strike anywhere on Earth within minutes, with no possibility of interception, represents a fundamental shift in the global balance of power. European nations find themselves in a particularly vulnerable position. Traditional deterrence theory relied on the ability to detect incoming threats and respond appropriately. Oreshnik's speed eliminates this luxury. By the time it's detected, it has already struck its target. This has led to discussions about entirely new defense concepts, including space-based sensors that could provide earlier warning and directed energy weapons that might, theoretically, engage hypersonic targets. Beyond its strategic implications, Oreshnik represents a tactical revolution in how wars might be fought. The weapon's ability to strike high-value targets anywhere in Europe within 15 minutes means that military commanders must completely rethink their operational planning. Command centers, airfields, ports, and logistics hubs, all the infrastructure that modern militaries depend on, are now perpetually at risk. The psychological impact cannot be understated. Knowing that an Oreshnik could obliterate your position with no warning fundamentally changes military decision-making. It's not just about the weapon's destructive capability. It's about the paralysis that comes from facing an unstoppable threat. This psychological dimension extends to civilian leadership as well. The knowledge that critical infrastructure could be destroyed within minutes of a decision to launch creates what strategists call compellence, the ability to force political decisions through the mere threat of use. Russia doesn't need to fire Oreshnik to leverage its power. The weapon's mere existence changes the calculus of every military and political decision. Perhaps most troubling is what Oreshnik represents for the future of warfare. The weapon demonstrates that it's possible to create conventional weapons with near-nuclear levels of strategic impact. This blurs the traditional distinction between conventional and nuclear warfare in dangerous ways. Military theorists are already discussing hypersonic strategy, the idea that nations with advanced hypersonic weapons hold such an advantage that they can achieve political objectives through threat alone. It's a return to gunboat diplomacy, but with weapons that make gunboats look like toys. The proliferation question looms large. If Russia can develop Oreshnik, what's to stop other nations from following suit? The technology isn't easy to master, but it's not impossible. Within a decade, we could see a world where dozens of nations possess weapons capable of striking anywhere on Earth within minutes. As military analysts continue studying Oreshnik's implications, critical questions remain unanswered. How many does Russia possess? Can they be mass-produced? Or are they limited production systems? What countermeasures, if any, might be possible? And perhaps most importantly, what does Oreshnik's existence mean for the future of international stability? The weapon's combat debut in Ukraine wasn't just a tactical strike. It was a demonstration that the rules of modern warfare have fundamentally changed. In 11 minutes of flight time, Oreshnik didn't just destroy a factory in Dnipro. It destroyed the illusion that distance and defense systems could provide security in the modern world. The age of hypersonic warfare has begun, and like all revolutionary military technologies, its ultimate impact will be measured not just in the targets it destroys, but in the wars it prevents, or the ones it makes inevitable. In the shadow of Oreshnik, the world's military balance has shifted, and we're all still calculating what that means for the future of global security.